Now available in paperback and e-readers from SJS Direct. Isis, House of Isis. The goddess next door takes on a hustling Hotep high priestess in Harlem in this Afrocentric Isis series adventure. Pick up Isis, House of Isis at online booksellers today. I started watching Jessica Jones Season 2 at the library last week, and 6 episodes in, this show is so grimy, I feel like I need a shower after watching each episode. Now, I get that Jessica Jones is supposed to be a hard, gritty, hard boiled detective series, but Jessica Jones, Patsy Walker, and many of the women in this series are just so nasty. I feel like I'm watching hookers on Times Square and not the hard-boiled detective series that Jessica Jones purports itself to be. Now, Jessica Jones Season 2 does start out with a little better writing than the first season, and the premise of Jessica investigating how she got her powers is an interesting concept for a mystery. However, the big problem with Jessica Jones is with the execution of the concept. And the reason why the concept isn't really executed well is because the hero, Jessica Jones, is just not someone you can root for. Again, when it comes down to Jessica Jones, she acts more like a hooker in Times Square than a heroine you can relate to and identify with. She doesn't have any sort of positive character traits that make her relatable as a heroine, and that makes it hard for the viewer to care about Jessica Jones or care about her solving the mystery regarding her powers. She's just such a hard drinking, potty mouthed female that you just don't want to be involved with this type of person. She's not the type of person you want to spend an hour watching her series because she's just such a disgusting human being. And then watching her and Patsy Walker sitting there drinking and then taking drugs, it's just not something that's appealing to an audience of viewers. And as I sat there and I entered Jessica Jones's world, it just wasn't a place I really wanted to be for that long. I mean, 6 episodes in, I'm this close to clicking out of this series and moving on. I mean, when it comes down to Jessica Jones, she's supposed to be this gritty character like Frank Castle, but when I take a look at Frank Castle, he at least has some redeeming qualities to his character, because when I was watching Netflix's The Punisher, at least Frank Castle had a moral code, he at least had a sense of honor, and he at least had some integrity in the fact that he would try to look out for people like Donnie, who was a part of the band of guys who were looking to do the robbery on the mobsters, and that young soldier who had lost his mind due to PTSD. He was trying to look out for these people and try to protect them. But when it comes down to Jessica Jones, I don't really see her being any sort of type of leader in that type of way, nor do I see her being any sort of type of competent detective. And this is another big problem I have with Jessica Jones, is that it's a series that's really disjointed. It does not know whether it wants to be a detective show or if it wants to be a superhero show, and it doesn't know how to make either of those concepts work organically, because in some episodes she's trying to be this detective, and in some episodes she's trying to be a superhero, but it never really comes together to be the promising premise that originally was supposed to be what Jessica Jones is supposed to be, this super-powered private investigator who uses her powers to solve crimes. We never really see that come together in the first season, and we never got to see it in this season either. Now, she's supposed to be on the trail of her adopted mother who has these superpowers, but I don't really see her coming to be an interesting person enough to make me care to see if she stops her or not. Because when I look at Jessica Jones and I look at her adoptive mother who has superpowers, they're both unlikable characters, and both characters are just so twisted that you just don't want to watch them. And then you see Patsy Walker, who's out here taking these drugs, and it's just a major turnoff. The series just feels so grimy and so dirty. You feel like you're in the middle of 1980s Times Square, where it's just sleaze, and it's just not really an appealing series to watch. And when I watch the series again, there's not one single likable character on this show, and there's not one single character you want to root for or see be the bad guy. And when you have a superhero show, you really need to root for the hero. The hero really needs to have traits that make you relate to them, traits that make you want to identify with them, and traits that make you care about them enough to the point where you want to see them beat the bad guy, solve the case, and see the story come to a resolution. 6 episodes into Jessica Jones, I don't see that type of character from her. I don't see her being a strong hero. I don't see her being an interesting person. I just see a character who is supposed to be designed to be these things, but never really comes to become that type of hero. She's just so unlikable that you just want to click out of this series because she just doesn't have any sort of redeeming character traits. Now, I wish the producers of Jessica Jones had picked up a couple of copies of Max Allan Collins and Terry Beatty's Miss Tree, because in Max Allan Collins and Terry Beatty's Miss Tree, they give us the character that Brian Michael Bendis wanted Jessica Jones to be, because Michael Tree is a strong heroine who is a private investigator, but she handles herself with far more class and intelligence than Jessica Jones. She shows that she can compete with male detectives of the pulp era like Mickey Spillane's Mike Hammer by being just as smart as they are, being as savvy as they are, and being as quick on her feet as they are, and quick with a gun as they are. When I look at Michael Tree, she's the character Jessica Jones wishes she could be. She's a woman with high class, high style, and she overcomes adversity by keeping her head up and keeping her wits about her. That's the type of detective I would want to see in a television series, and I would rather see a Ms. Tree television series than this hot mess that they presented as Jessica Jones, because when I look at Jessica Jones, I don't see a hero that audiences can look up to. I see someone who people want to avoid having any sorts of dealing with, because when I look at this character, I don't see anyone you would want to spend an hour with watching every day. I see someone who, if you saw her on the street, you would want to avoid her at all costs. And when I take a look at this Jessica Jones series, I see a television series that has one foot on a banana peel and another in the grave. And I'm urging Netflix to really go out of their way to try to revamp this series, because this series, as I see it right now, is so unappealing and so disgusting in its presentation of women that I don't see it lasting much longer than this second season, because when I look at these characters, there's not one positive trait to them, not one appealing trait to them. And if you don't have characters that are relatable and identifiable to the viewer, then you're not going to have much of an audience for this show. Now, Netflix says that this show has a whole cast of female writers and female producers and female directors for Jessica Jones, but I don't really see how having women on this show are going to help it, because the negative portrayal of women in Jessica Jones does not make women look good, and it doesn't make women appear to be a positive thing. What I saw in Jessica Jones was the worst traits of women presented on screen in a television series, and it's a series that, in 6 episodes in, I just wouldn't recommend to anyone, man or women, because the moral depravity of these characters is so disgusting that this show is a show that I would just urge everyone to make an effort to pass and avoid watching, because there's nothing positive about Jessica Jones. It's just like, as I see it, looking at hookers in Times Square, and that's not something I would recommend any comic fan or any fantasy fan take an hour of their lives to look at almost every day, or even consider as a binge-worthy show. This jumbled, directionless show, as I see it, is in desperate need of a revamp, and this Jessica Jones character needs to be revamped in a way that makes her a more multidimensional character, a more interesting character, and they really need to give her a story outside of the same old tired victim narrative they have given her since the first season. A narrative that's really getting tired and hard to watch, and a series that desperately, as I see it, needs an overhaul if it hopes to get to a third season or even a fourth season. If they continue to present what they present in Jessica Jones in any more episodes, what's going to happen is the series is going to get canceled sooner rather than later. If you'd like to try some of my SJS Direct publications, you may do so by clicking the link to Amazon.com. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can click the link to my Patreon in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.